Good morning, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to speak with you this morning. Audentes is thrilled to be here, and we are delighted at how warm and welcoming you have been to all of us. It really warms our hearts. Every time we encounter families, we go back to work totally renewed and re-strengthened and redetermined to move this program as fast as we possibly can. So I think Matt alluded to the fact yesterday that Audentes is kind of an unusual company, but here's one more unusual fact about Audentes. I think it's probably the only pharmaceutical company in the world that had a patient advocate as its second employee. But that speaks to the patient-centered mission that Matt has for our company. So we are not quite 2 years old, and we are moving very, very rapidly. So you may say to yourself, why do they have a patient advocate person? What does that person do? So really the role of patient advocacy is to bring the voice of all of you to the company so they hear what you're seeing and feeling and wanting. And then for me, in turn, to take the voice of the company back to you so that you understand where we're thinking and feeling and doing, and so everybody knows what's going on everywhere. Pharmaceutical development has changed a lot in the last 15 years. In the early 2000s, I worked for a pharma company that was developing a drug for urea cycle disorders. We did the whole clinical program, we filed the NDA, we got the drug approved. I went to one patient advocacy meeting, and that was under some protests from the patient advocacy group, even though we were the major sponsor of the meeting. They weren't sure they wanted somebody there from industry corrupting them. So I was finally allowed to attend if I agreed to sit in the back of the room and not talk to anybody for 2 days. So I went just to hear what everybody else was saying. Eventually, families started coming up to me because they didn't know who I was. Today, pharmaceutical development has really developed into a partnership. It's a partnership between you, between us, between academia, and actually between the regulatory agencies. We are very interested in your input, as you know, and we have sought to get this input in a number of ways through focus groups. We did our first focus group last summer in the UK. Holger was there, and he was so inspired by what he saw and heard. He went back to Germany and has recreated a patient organization there. They had their first conference this summer. Erin was there for the meeting and met a lot of people too, and I know she enjoyed it. So we have had 2 focus groups. We had another one in the United States. Many of the people that are here today also attended that one. We've also supported all of the MTM organizations, the MTM-CNM group, the Joshua Frey's Foundation, the Myotubular Trust in the UK, the German Patient Organization. And then we decided that what we really needed to do was create a means by which your boys' voices can be heard. Most of them cannot speak. So how do people know about them? We decided to tell their stories through the use of photography. So we hired Levi Gersh, and I think probably most of you have seen him and talked to him over this week, to go out and meet with families, spend a couple of days with them, see their children in a variety of settings in their home, in their neighborhood, in their community, and begin to understand what their lives were like, and to create that through a series of photographs, and then also to interview their parents and capture their stories. So we have started this series on our website. We will be continuing with this series on an ongoing basis. And over the course of the next year, we will be photographing 6 more boys and telling their stories in an effort to let the world know about myotubular myopathy and to know about your children. We also get a lot of letters and phone calls, and I'm the person that answers all of them. So that's how we hear your voice. Academia is looking to partner with us. I'm sure you heard Casey speak. I'm sure you heard Mike Lawler speak. These are people working in academia, and they are wanting to work with industry because we can help them move their projects and their dreams forward through our funding. The federal government is actually, regulatory agencies are actually beginning to get more involved with patient groups too. The FDA has hosted a series of events over the last couple of years where they've invited patient groups to come in and talk about what they need. They've also become much more interested in meeting with pharma companies early in the development process. So we've already had meetings, as Suyash talked about yesterday, with regulatory agencies in the US and in various European countries. So this is an effort to get everybody working together towards a common goal. It used to be in days gone by, a company did their study, they sent in their NDA, and they hoped to heck the FDA would pass it. Very little interaction prior to that time. They might have had one end of phase 2 meeting, but by then you're pretty far down the road, and if the FDA doesn't like where you're going, you're kind of in a bad way. So we are getting engaged very early with all of the regulatory agencies. So that's another way that we're working towards our common goal of getting drugs on the market. Audentes, and the MTM community is starting to be recognized on a broader plane. Today I got an email from a patient in Turkey who has a child with myopathy. When Holger had the German meeting, there was family there from the Netherlands. They were also at the UK meeting. There was a family there from Croatia. So the word is slowly filtering out. So I'll be anxious to see at the conference in 2 years where we have people from. So we're also being recognized in other ways. Allison is being honored at the Global Genes meeting, which is held the end of September in Huntington Beach, California. And at that meeting, about 400 patient advocates will come together for 2.5 days. It's a very powerful meeting because you hear stories, you hear ideas, you have a chance to meet people from all the various patient advocacy groups in the country. We are also being honored for our work in early engagement with patient advocacy groups. They have asked us to host a panel to discuss the various projects we have done with all of the different patient groups because it's so atypical of drug development. So they're hoping that we can serve as an example to other pharma companies on the value of early engagement. A lot of times, pharma companies don't get engaged with patient groups till they're in the phase 3 trial or even ending the phase 3 trial. So when I say to people, I could enroll our trial tomorrow if it was open, because I know 20 patients, they're like, really? I'm like, really? They find that very amazing. We find it wonderful because we love having the opportunity to know all of you and to work with all of you and dream with you of a better day for your children. So I hope that going forward, we will be able to keep our eyes focused on the fact that we're all here for the kids, not to let personalities interfere with principles. It's hard, I know, we're all human, we all have our foibles and frailties. I'm sure there's gonna be days when you're gonna be like, I hate that lady. I hope you'll just remember that I'm really working for your children, even if I'm having a grumpy day. I will try and remember you're working for your children if you have a grumpy day. And I think it's just important that we all hold hands and walk forward together so that we can all cross the finish line together. So thank you again for the wonderful opportunity to be here. Thank you again for providing inspiration to all of us. We go back and share our stories and tell people about what we learned at this meeting, and they're always like, oh, tell us more stories, tell us more stories. You make it real for us. You know, I work in a lab. I don't ever see patients, but you make it real for us when you talk about who you've met and what you've learned. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts. We look forward to working with you going forward. Let's all hold hands and walk across the finish line together.